Are you struggling with infertility? Do you feel like your hormones are against you and you can't figure out how to make them work for you? Or do you want a natural way to support your hormones so you feel more in tune with your body? If so, then today's episode is for you. In today's episode, I've invited my friend Bekah Yawn, FEMM educator and FIAT hormone coach, to share with us what cycle syncing is and how you can use it to naturally balance your hormones and get in sync with the natural rhythms of your body. Whether you're trying to conceive, just been through a miscarriage, or simply trying to live more at peace and empowered with your cycle, then this episode is for you. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly podcast. If you're currently trying endless supplements, doctor visits, and diet changes to heal your mystery symptoms, you are in the right place. We're here to solve the real root causes behind your gut, hormone, skin, sleep, and brain concerns. Literally anything and everything in your body. My name is Allison Jordan. I'm a functional medicine practitioner that has supported over 150 clients just like you to heal problems that no one has been able to fix. You don't need a perfect diet or a random supplement you found on Instagram to heal. You need a proven system that heals your whole body from the inside out. That's what I'm here to share with you, episode by episode. It's time to make health easy again. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. All right, guys, before I jump into today's content with Beka, I just have a quick announcement, which is, drumroll, the winner of our 200th episode giveaway, because for the last month, we've been approaching the 200th episode. We even passed it last week, but the announcement for who gets a full ride scholarship to the Better Belly Blueprint program, where you learn how to heal your gut even when nothing else has worked, so you can get rid of constipation, acid reflux, and finally balance your hormones. That whole program, full ride scholarship, is going to Morgan. Awesome. We had one Morgan in our list. So if your name is Morgan, you won. We have emailed you this morning, or whenever you're listening to this podcast episode, we emailed you the morning of the day that this aired. What day is that, guys? The morning of the 30th. We emailed you. So go check your email. We have information on how to redeem everything that you got, that full ride scholarship. And if you did participate in the giveaway, you automatically got $200 off, a $200 off coupon to the Better Belly Blueprint, which you can use until tomorrow, May 31st at midnight. So if you are wanting to join, go use that coupon by May 31st at midnight, and you can get the $200 off. And if you have not participated yet, you actually still can. Just go to betterbellytherapies.com/giveaway, follow the instructions on how to enter into the giveaway by leaving a rating and review on the podcast, and then you'll automatically get an email. It'll have your $200 off code. Again, you can keep getting this email. You can keep getting $200 off basically until May 31st at midnight. So go, if you have not joined, leave a rating and review, get to the $200 off, join, and I will see you guys in there. Now, on to Beka. All right, guys, I am so excited today. We have on Bekah Yawn. Bekah Yawn has worked with dozens of women and couples nationwide to empower them in their fertility health. She's a fertility coach, y'all, and she's a psychology major, a FEMM educator, a FIAT hormone coach, and she is well respected in the fertility education community. Bekah loves helping women understand their body and God's design and how to support it naturally so you can get pregnant inside her course, The Fertility Framework. Guys, I brought Beka on today to talk about something that can be super empowering when it comes to healing your hormones, learning more about your specific body, what's going on with it, but I typically only cover the basics with, and this is cycle syncing. Beka's going to help us go deep into cycle syncing today. Things like, why would a woman want to do cycle syncing, what it is, what it has to do with your gut, and before we get on to all of that, first, Beka, I would just love to know, how did you get into fertility coaching even to begin with?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. For those of you listening, we met on the business coaching program. So Allison's fantastic. So I got into fertility coaching really because of a lot of hardship and trial in my life. We had two pretty healthy babies, healthy deliveries, and then we got pregnant with our third, and it was a 15-week miscarriage. And so it was absolutely devastating. I know it's like in your first pregnancy, you're like, oh my
Freaked
gosh, so
out.
stressed out,
Yes.
like hoping you will make it past the 12 weeks. But then with the second pregnancy, it's like, okay, I think we'll be all right. And then by the third, you don't even think twice about it. And
Especially if you've
so
had two good ones.
right. Yeah. So it was a total shock. It was the most devastating thing that's ever happened in my life. And then we went and had two chemical pregnancies very quickly after that one. And we were just at rock bottom because we wanted to, I say we, my husband and I, we wanted to have a way to naturally prevent pregnancy for a hot minute to figure out what was going on with my health. And we weren't being given any options other than the pill or IUD, which we didn't feel comfortable with. And now we know why we didn't feel comfortable with them. I'm not sure if you talked much about those on the podcast, but
Yes, but like not super in depth. And honestly, I
yeah,
love anybody's spiel on it because I think that's still something, even if you hear one person be like, it's kind of bad for you, like hearing more people talk about it is great. I mean, anything you want to
yeah.
share, we can pile that in right
Oh
now.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it turns out birth control and the IUD are just absolutely horrific for your hormones and for your gut, like horrible. And I'd been on it for like over 14 years off and on for medical reasons, quote unquote. And so
Tell
anyway, so
what
we
were those
weren't,
medical
yeah.
reasons? Would you
So when I was 10, I got my period. And around that time, I was having like crazy heavy bleeding. And my mom said I was almost hemorrhaging. And so
mm,
they put me on the pill. And then I was on that for a while. And then I kind of got off of it. And then apparently I was diagnosed with PMDD, which is just
oh,
super severe
yes.
PMSing. And so I was put on the pill. And so, anyways, I was just kind of on and off it, for a while.
To manage
And
symptoms.
right. Yeah, just to manage symptoms. So who knows what was going on. And obviously, like now I'm look back and know as like a fertility educator, oh, it's actually normal to take a year or two for a woman's cycles to regulate. So who knows? And there's so many more natural things. I'm like, well, why did we ever try flaxseed oil? Because that could have just like stopped it. Anyways, I'm rabbit trailing right now. I'm really good at that.
No, no, no. This is great. I mean, and this is how health can sometimes be, right? It's like
Right.
we try to make it as clear and straightforward as possible on the back end, but our personal stories were not like it's just like our people who are listening to this, your personal story isn't like pshing, straight arrow, but then
Right.
we look back and we're like, I want to create that straight path. So that's kind of what, you're trying to do, what we're trying to
Yeah.
do even right now. So, but I think the messy middle is good to be like, that's the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. It was super messy. So we were at rock bottom. We're like, okay, we want something else we can do to have a space to heal. And a friend really challenged me after my doctor told me after our third miscarriage, like we could do some testing, but there's not really a way to figure out why or what you can do to prevent another one. And my friend was like, Becca, you can get better answers than that. And I'm so thankful for that one friend in my life. And now I see myself as like being that friend on my podcast to every single person who listens to it of like, you can get better answers. So there began our pursuit of finding, and honestly, it was God revealing to us different things. So he showed us what fertility awareness methods were. He got us connected with a Christ-centered fertility doctors who knew a lot more than just your average OBGYN. Got me connected with a hormone coach. So hormone coaches from the FIAT Institute are trained in a Christ-centered way just to bring women into a lot of thoughtfulness about their cycle and about their hormones and about the little things that they can change and tweak in their day that make a really big difference. So all of those things helped me a ton. It was like a 6-month journey of just healing and learning and being patient and kind of transforming our life. And then we got the green light from the Lord to try to get pregnant again, and we did. And now we have our triple rainbow baby, and we're so thankful for her. And so I got certified to basically teach people, what helped me the most, which is learning a fertility awareness method, and then getting also certified as a hormone coach to be able to help people with the imbalances we observe.
Yeah. Would you mind real quick? I'm actually not familiar with the phrase chemical pregnancy. I
Yeah,
think I
yeah,
know what it is, but could you just real quick cover what that is? Because I'm still
yeah.
thinking about it a little.
Yeah, so chemical pregnancy is just a super early miscarriage.
Okay.
It's basically where, you conceive at about 2 weeks, quote unquote.
Mhm.
So you conceive at 2 weeks, and so you may get a positive pregnancy test, like a really faint line, and then you get a heavy period, quote unquote. So
Okay.
it's not a period, right? It was an early miscarriage. So it's when you miscarry about 4 to 5 weeks along.
Right, right, when it's just super and it almost could seem like a period if you weren't, like, really
Yeah, if you
watching
didn't know
it
your
probably.
body, then it would seem like a period.
So speaking of knowing your body, let's talk about cycle syncing. First off, can you just cover basis? What is cycle syncing? I feel like I see this term around and maybe some of our listeners are like, "Yeah, I've heard that," but, like, just, like, what does it involve? What is it?
Yeah, so cycle syncing is being aware of the different phases of your cycle and tweaking things like what you're eating and how you're exercising and even like the supplements you're taking. Like those are the basic things. I do like to educate women on just being really self aware of how do you cycle sync in your marriage. I think that's a huge one. I mean, this is like marital one-on-one. I feel like everyone should have a class on women's hormones and male hormones. I know it's not what we're talking about today, but that's huge just to know, like, okay, where am I at and what can I plan to do or not plan to do with my husband based on what phase of my cycle I'm in. You could do the same thing with kids if if your listeners have kids, thinking like, okay, when are we staying at home and watching a movie and when are we going to the zoo, and timing that with what phase of your cycle you're in, and even work projects. So like if you're someone like you got a podcast and you're in front of everyone, you would time like recording with a certain phase of your cycle and like just doing basic, like not having to be in front of people work with a different phase of your cycle. So those are like the different things inside of it.
Yeah, and just for contrast, someone who's not cycle syncing, I feel like you alluded to it, but I wanna paint the picture real quick that I see a lot with my clients is that or honestly, most women, because most women, we grow up in this society where we're on a man's hormone cycle, which is
Mm,
like 24 hours. Every 24
yeah.
hours, they get the same hormones. And
Yep.
so they can do 9 to 5, same type of work every day of the week, and they're gonna get the same results. But women will be like, 1 week we're killing it, 1 week we're like, wait, I planned to do this amazing outing and I'm like dying. And we like are vaguely aware, okay, if we menstruate, yes, that's a bad time to like go and do our heaviest lift day ever. But we still also can be like, feel like we have to push through it or like, that's just me being weak. And
Mhm.
cycle seeking is all honestly like, how do you just become more aware of yourself, more aware of your body so that you can plan better, have better grace with yourself, and honestly that your plans can actually go through. That you
Right.
like you're like, "Oh, I made that plan, I actually could go through with it." Hey friend, do you feel like you're never properly digesting anything no matter how you change your diet? Have you spent thousands of dollars buying supplements, labs, and fancy functional or holistic practitioners to simply have no relief from your symptoms? Or do you just want to poop daily, ditch acid reflux, and balance your hormones without being dependent on medications? If so, I've got great news for you. You can stop the money hemorrhage that's happening around your health and finally get worry free health through the Gut Healer System. The Gut Healer System is my 2.0 upgrade to the former Better Belly method that consistently reduces our clients' symptoms by 80% in 3 to 6 months so that your health can finally feel easy. Our clients have gone from being stuck at home with fibromyalgia to watching their grandchildren's soccer games every evening, or they've been able to travel for work and pleasure without wondering the entire trip if they're going to become constipated and ruin their whole time. We've also seen clients get off of 40 plus years of medications that they've been on for acid reflux, constipation, and PMS, and stay off that medication without needing to be on lifelong extreme diet restrictions or supplements. I want you to be able to enjoy the holidays and family meals without fearing how you're going to feel afterwards or feeling guilty for what you do eat. If you are ready for this, head to betterbellytherapies.com/training to watch my free micro training to learn exactly how 600 plus of my clients have healed their gut even when nothing else has worked before. In this training, you're going to learn what your doctors are missing, even if they're functional or holistic, why no amount of food restrictions are going to heal your gut, the 5 toxin trap that is keeping you sick, how to heal your gut in the most affordable way possible, and the 3 steps to actually heal your gut. I can't wait to see you living a worry-free, optimal, healthy life. Head to betterbellytherapies.com/training to get started today. Now, back to the show.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and I feel like you might have already covered this a little, but I also wanted to just explicitly ask this question for you to answer. What are the main reasons a woman would even want to do cycle syncing?
Wow. I mean, I'll ask back another question. Why would she not want to cycle sync? So it's insane. It will literally change your life for the better. I mean, your life will go from just questioning who you are and why you're acting this way and feeling guilty about it to frankly, and I'm not all about like woman empowerment and blah 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 blah, like I'm not that kind of person, like, you know what I mean. I'm like, let's just embrace the gifts that the Lord has given us and all of that. But there's true empowerment in knowing where we're at in our cycle and in our hormones and what's going on with that to who we are that day and how we show up that day and how we give grace for ourselves or feel really good about doing extra things with just knowing what phase of our cycle we're in. A really common issue that I see for women is they just beat themselves up of like, man, I really wanted to do this. Like it was on my heart. And now I just don't have the get up and go to do it. And I just don't want to do it anymore. And I'm just crazy. Or other people telling her that she's crazy, because like she says she'll do one thing and then she doesn't do it. And then,
Or lazy, or yeah, changing
yeah.
your mind all the time.
Right. So, I mean, when it comes to cycle syncing, it's just, I mean, really, truly, you're just getting to know the language of your body. You're just getting to understand how your body is acting and what it's up for and what it's not up for and what it's more up for. And I think that's really awesome because it makes you a better follower of Christ. It makes you a better wife. It makes you a better mom. It makes you a better worker, employee, just knowing where you're at and being confident in it.
So I would love, if you're okay with this, can we dig in a little and talk about the different phases and just can you give us some examples of in different phases, things someone like no knows, things that might tend to not be great ideas or things that'll be better ideas so that people have just a
Yeah.
brief understanding of the variety of things that you're talking about here.
Absolutely. I'm like, okay, we've whet their appetite, so now let's like give them a taste. So depending on what fertility awareness method you chart with, you'll hear different terminologies for cycle phases. But I've kind of created my own cycle phase planning thing. I'm a FEMM educator. FEMM stands for fertility education medical management. So they have their own cycle phases that we teach. But what I really like to break it down into how the woman feels at different places in her cycle. So I call phase one the tranquility phase. So tranquility, I'm sure you can guess, when that would be. But obviously it's usually around the first 3 days of a woman's cycle, and it's the last 2 to 3 days of a woman's cycle in a healthy woman. All right. So I know a lot of your listeners are
Deep.
on a health journey. So that might not really apply to them, right? So their tranquility phase may be a week before their period starts. Like if they're having intense PMS and they're tired and they're not sleeping well and they're anxious, you might need to be like, okay, I'm gonna pump the brakes. I'm gonna recognize that I am in a tranquility phase. I cannot function very well right now. So I'm gonna start my tranquility phase earlier. So if you're dealing with hormone imbalance or gut issues or whatever, you need to recognize and just be really in tune with your body. And when you start to feel lower, and just being okay with that, being like, all right, this is where I'm at. And I'm going to up my warm and high iron foods. We say, eat like soups and things with root vegetables. And we also say to avoid or lessen red meat and sugar in that part of that phase because those can be more inflammatory. So that's kind of the first phase that I like to talk about. It's the tranquility phase. It's just when everything is very quiet hormonally. The couple days before the cycle, your hormones start to drop off, and then the hormones are really low.
And
So
that's
that's the first phase.
menstruation. Just
Yeah,
like you didn't say that word, but just for our listeners, she's talking about menstruation,
yeah,
is like you're having a period. And if your hormones are really balanced, like you're not gonna be like your life is wrecked for during that
right.
time period. You're just gonna have lower energy, gonna be more calm,
Yeah.
eat warmer foods, really give yourself a lot of nutrients. But if things are a little rocky, you might have more of a, I almost think of like a airplane, more of a need a longer landing strip,
Yeah.
land the plane.
Yeah, I call it the red tent. That's what the Native American women would do. They would literally go out to a red tent on their period.
I'm
And
going
it's
to
like
my
sometimes
tent,
I do want a
guys.
red tent. Yeah, it's like
Oh
a
my
real
gosh,
thing.
that makes me so happy. It's like, guys, she went to the red tent. Leave her alone. Do not expect her to cook dinner. Just like let her do her thing. She will be back when things are over. I love that. I actually even heard of this. It was okay if I just interject this. Recently, when I was pregnant, I read a book and learned that there's a Native American culture that actually aims to protect the fetus and the mother of a fetus when she's pregnant by keeping people who are angry away from them because they
Oh,
simply
wow.
observed that like okay, we want to protect this life that's being formed. We don't want the pregnant mom to be stressed because then they assumed that the baby is experiencing that too, which is actually the
Yeah.
opposite of Western medicine. Western medicine assumes the baby experiences nothing. I mean, if you do drugs, they'll experience that, but I mean stress, why would a baby experience that? But they literally, Native American wisdom was saying, we're going to protect you so far as to like keep angry people away from you. I was like, I want that treatment.
That is so true. There's actually scientific research studies that have shown recently how for the girl who is in utero of her mother, when she's in her mother's womb, when that mother is under a lot of stress, there have been correlations of that mother's stress to that daughter's ovulatory dysfunction later on in life, which is crazy. I'm like, okay, honey, I talked to my husband, right? I'm like, honey, we're going to need to wait a little bit. We've got 3 kids, 4 and under, and there's a lot of stress with that. And
And I
so,
don't want my next baby to feel that.
exactly, I'm like, we need to wait till we're really stable. And I'm not going to be experiencing a lot of stress because I want the best health possible for the next one. So, okay, so we've really rabbit holed. So that was phase for tranquility. Okay. Phase two, I call it the phase to initiate. So this is on average, healthy women around cycle day 2, 3, or 4, you're just going to start to feel better. Like you're just going to start to feel more lively. And again, if you're healthy, you're absolutely right of what you hit on of like, if you're healthy, like your period shouldn't be this like horrible, awful time. It should not be. But it is a time where you are just more quiet and you're more reflective. And it's a great time to journal and to pray and just to like think about things and think about life plans, vision goals, like all that stuff. So anyways, but once you get to phase two, what's happening is your estrogen is starting to creep up a little bit and you're starting to get more energy, you're starting to get more pep in your step, and you're okay with talking to people again. And so anyway, so that is around cycle day 3 to 4 until you hit what we call in FEMM your point of change. So your point of change is when basically you have a certain mucus change, a mucus observation.
And that's not necessarily ovulation yet, right? Because you're not
Nope.
using the terms. I only work with the terms of luteal phase, ovulation, all those traditional scientific phase. So I'm like, I'm
Right.
trying to map it onto my mind where I'm like, I don't think it doesn't quite map onto all those, correct?
No, yeah. So then we get into phase three, which is your time to maximize. So your time to maximize is from your point of change. So once you start seeing and observing more mucus in layman's terms until you ovulate. Okay. So when you're experiencing a lot of mucus, ladies, it's like that's your go time, your show time. Your estrogen is at its highest. That's when you want to go zip lining or you want to go to the zoo with your kids, or that's when you're lifting the heavy weights and doing really intense things. Caveat: estrogen, it's crazy. They're like, you're actually more likely to break bones when your estrogen is really high. So it's kind of a weird thing. I don't really get that because I'm like, God, you're like super awesome in everything, but why on that one, you know? So, like, when we're feeling this amazing to exercise in that way. So, it is something to be mindful of and to be careful of. But otherwise, like, go hard on it, you know? And
You're
it's,
gonna usually
yeah,
have your like PRs for athletes. We'll see
yep,
that the closer they get to ovulation.
yeah,
And the opposite
yeah.
is actually true for that tranquility phase or menstruation.
Yeah. I was an athlete growing up. I swam all the way in college and all of that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I had known this information as an athlete for like 14 years, I can't imagine how much just more confident I would have been. Because, there were
Mm.
days when I was like totally crushing it and at the top of the chain. And then there were days where I was just like, I don't even want to dip my toes in the water. And just super sluggish. So, and it's like the beauty of this when we go back to why would a woman want to cycle sync is because she's not going to feel bad about herself. She's not going to have all that self doubt. She's going to be like, yeah, that's where my hormones are today. And she can communicate that to her coaches. She can communicate that to her husband, to her boss, to her kids. Like my kids know, oh, mommy's hormones are low right now. Like I will tell
Oh,
them if I'm just like you guys, mommy's hormones are low. I'm just going to be a little bit more grumpy, a little less patient. So we need to pray for mommy and be more patient with mommy. So
yes. Oh my goodness. I love that.
teach them young.
Um, I'm like, I hadn't even thought of like, yeah, how do we communicate that with our children? My daughter might not be able to understand it yet, but she does understand mommy's resting. We just taught her that. And that's been really
Yeah.
powerful that my
Yeah.
husband just says, mommy's resting.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Like however we model. And I mean, I have two boys and then the girl, and the girl's like a year old, right? So she's not, so it'll be super fun to support her when she gets later on in life. But even for my boys, for them to recognize, they probably recognize mommy's different than daddy. Mommy has these crazy ebbs and flows and is different sometimes and is more playful sometimes and is more quiet sometimes. And yet daddy's kind of always the same. And I think it's really cool for them to just observe the beautiful differences in God's design for his mom and dad, their mom and
Yeah.
dad. So, yeah.
So we
Anyways,
have tranquility. I forgot what the next one was. It was growth or
initiate.
initiate and
Hmm.
then maximize. And everybody loves those two stages.
Oh,
You
yeah.
usually like libido's higher. And it's a great time to, if you're a business owner, do all your podcasts or you're getting your PRs and your athletic prowesses. Like you're feeling great. You're like, it's great to be a woman. And then
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And so
then
then we go into execute. Phase 4 is execute. So if you ovulate healthy, this is a very big caveat because if you are listening to Allison's podcast and you're having a lot of gut health issues, I would also question how is your ovulation? How is your ovulatory health? So it may not be healthy. So the biggest thing is if you ovulated successfully and healthfully, what happens in that awesome process is a follicle was grown and matured and an egg is released in ovulation, and then that follicle transforms into something called the corpus luteum, and the corpus luteum is what produces progesterone. And progesterone, I really like to call it the execution hormone, because when you're having amazing levels of progesterone, you just get things done. I almost want to relabel this in some kind of like nurturing way too, like a nurturing type of execution, because even when you're not pregnant, progesterone is a very nurturing hormone. So, to give you an example of what this looks like, is yesterday, I'm currently in my luteal phase. I go into my kid's closet and I just want to organize their closet. Like I'm like mama bear taking everything out and just like resorting everything, reorganizing everything. So you're very family oriented, you're very close to your loved ones oriented, and you're just very detail oriented, and you want to kind of accomplish some of the things that you had thought about because you have all these crazy squirrel ideas in your maximize phase. And so now you're initiating on them and completing some of them in that luteal phase.
that's really interesting because when one of the reasons I love having you on here is that cycle syncing, you really do use different language and you focus on different components of hormones and different functions. And it's more like how do you build your life around your hormones? Where I'm just like, how do you fix the hormones? But one of the things I
Mm,
talk about with progesterone a lot is it's a calming hormone. So it helps you sleep and it helps
yeah.
you not feel anxious. And a lot of times when I get clients who've come in and they're anxious a lot, they can't sleep. If we do a hormone test, their progesterone is bottomed out.
Mm,
And it's like, okay, the solution isn't actually at all related to you need a progesterone like medication. No, you can actually heal that progesterone by reducing sources of inflammation in the body. But that would make sense that I've never heard anyone talk about it as an execution hormone, but I wonder if it is like it's calming and maybe that helps
yeah.
us just be like, I can focus on the next task. I don't feel so
Right.
like energized or energetic or focused or just plain old fatigued or something. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, it's really powerful and it's just very confidence giving. Another thing that's interesting, another example I give is I was at the grocery store a couple weeks ago. We're on this crazy diet right now, and I mourn for my husband because he's like supportive, but not all there, right? So I'm trying to find him though, like an organic cereal that he can eat, that our kids can eat. And usually I would just be like, oh my gosh, like I'm just gonna find something and he'll deal with it, like he's fine. But when I was in my luteal phase at the height of my progesterone, I kid you not, I stood in that cereal aisle for 15 minutes being like, I just have to find him something that is similar to the Quaker brown sugar oats, or it's just not going to work. And he deserves that. And like all of these like mopey thoughts and like feelings that I just typically don't feel are coming in that luteal phase. And it's just like, it's so cool to recognize like, oh my gosh, this is so cool because my hormones are doing great. This is how God designed me to care for my family in this way, to care for others in this way, and to just feel so confident in that rather than being like, why am I moping over cereal right now? And just like questioning my identity. So it's pretty interesting.
Okay. So, I feel like I'm trying to memorize. We have tranquility, and I keep on calling it arising, initiating, maximizing, executing. What's next?
Yes. And then we just kind of go back down into tranquility. So I can actually share my screen here and kind of, oh, no, I can't. Well, anyways, I have a handout. This is like a great transition. I have a handout that I've prepared for your listeners where it shows this time cycle phase planning. So it kind of shows these different phases and gives a description of them. And then I give just like it's an awesome handout, guys. Like it's really good. It's part of my course, but it gives different suggestions for in each of those phases, like what you can focus on, like with food and exercise and marriage and kids and work, even housekeeping, supplements, essential oils, like all that kind of stuff, like different things that you can do. So yeah, so that's a little freebie, a great visual that you guys can have for tactical measures.
Yeah, we're gonna have that in the show notes. So if you're listening, go down to those show notes, make sure you get it. I hadn't gotten to look at it yet, and now I like really, really want to look at it. So super exciting.
Awesome.
Well, we have one more question that we haven't covered yet, like super in depth, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, which is what does your cycle have to do with your gut? Maybe someone's listening and they're like, do I have hormone problems? I don't know, but I have gut problems. Like, why would they want to care about this?
Yeah, it's huge because they're totally connected. And so when I like to work with clients, I mean, and what you're doing with them is so important because if your gut is not right, it's going to impact your hormones essentially. So what happens is if you're having lots of cortisol spikes and everything, and you guys know all this stuff by listening to Allison's podcast, but the thing is, like the basics, if your gut is not healthy and it's wrecked, your hormones, your sex hormones, your ovulatory hormones just kind of shut down. So that gut health is so important. So what you guys are doing with Allison is so important and it probably will be enough. And she's shown like it is enough to fix your hormones. So as a hormone coach, we look at gut, we look at liver, we educate on inflammation, on your sex hormones, on your thyroid, all that kind of stuff. We just want to educate women. And that gut health is so key when it comes to those hormones. Because if that's off, it's going to impact your hormones in a not so great way.
Awesome, Becca. Well, thank you so much for coming and just sharing some of your life experience and going on our rabbit trails and really educating our clients a lot more on the powers of cycle syncing and just honestly admiring the beauty of how women were created and we get all this variety. Variety is the spice of life, right? So, if someone wanted to connect with you, get in touch with you after listening to this and get maybe even work with you, how could they do that? Where can they go?
Awesome. Yeah, you can find me at my podcast. It's called For the Love of Hormones. And so we talk all the things hormonal health there. I really focus in on women who are trying to get pregnant or recovering from miscarriage. And I help others, but I mean, that's my main focus. So you can also find me at my website, Bekah, Bekah, BekahYawn.com, YAWN.com. So you can check out my course. You can check out how I serve people and all that over there.
Awesome. I've actually looked at her course, you guys, and even when I was like, should I have Becca on here? I was just like looking at what she has and like, I love this course. it would just pair really beautifully. Like if you just want to know more about your cycle and get all that education, it's not something that I jump into in the Better Belly Blueprint, where it's more like, okay, I teach you how a test you can take to know exactly where your hormones at and exactly how to fix them. But if you just want to be like, what can I do? And I'm guessing also, I meant to ask you this question. I'm guessing, right, that if somebody has somewhat dysfunctional hormones, that you even have stuff in your course on like, here's some things you can do to help this
Yeah.
phase along. Yeah. She's
Yep.
nodding, you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, that's what we work on. We basically learn, how do you understand your cycle? So, what is it telling you through that fertility awareness education method? And then the second part is, what do you do about it? What are like the natural tweaks and shifts you can do about it in a very non overwhelming way? So, I give you like, here's 15 to 20 different things to do in the cycle phase. Pick 1 to 3. Like, are you going
Mm,
at a slow pace? Or are you going at a fast pace? Pick
mm.
1 to 3, just so it's not overwhelming and you actually do make changes and see those changes happen. And then I do it in a very Christ-centered way. So I do have like a breakthrough moments of fertility moments with women in the Bible throughout that course, because I really want to address the spirit as well. Because when you're trying to get pregnant or recovering from miscarriage, it's a very difficult emotional thing to go through. So I think it's really important to have faith at the core of it.
I love it. And I love that you said that, because I also, especially with like clients going through stuff and me, you start to realize that there any woman in the Bible, it's most of them don't have normal like perfectly smooth anything related to children. They either have children and they're like not married, if you look at Mary, or like or they can't have children, or they have children but they're not the beloved wife. Like it's almost like you just see that it's not a new problem that women, like, it's just difficult for that part of our lives to go smoothly, and it's part of this gets a little bit more into spiritual and beliefs, which we don't do as much in the podcast, but I see it's part of the fall and just the fact that things don't work the way they should. But
Yeah.
it's not new. It's not like, I don't know, something that it's something that's been going on for a long time, and I love that you can help guide people who join your course in how to find respite and
Right.
wisdom and comfort in those
Yeah.
stories. I love it.
Yeah.
So guys, go check out not just Becca's freebie, go check that out. Go check out her podcast. Honestly, if this whet your appetite, go get her course, because this is going to be something super powerful you can use for the rest of your life. And if you've got daughters, for their lives, I mean, so powerful. Becca, thank you so much for coming onto the Better Belly podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening, you can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of, and you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.